Hello viewers, the topic of today's discussion is meaning and scope of demography. In 1969, Bogg has proposed three basic demographic questions. How large or small is the population? How is the population composed in terms of demographic characteristics of age and sex, and two additional characteristics closely aligned to demography, namely race and marital status. How is the population distributed spatially? The answer to these questions are given in three demographic processes of fertility, mortality and migration or mobility. In this context, according to Poston, demography is the scientific study of the size, composition and spatial distribution of human population and the changes that occur in these phenomena through the processes of fertility, mortality and migration. According to Hazer and Duncan, the subject matter of demography is grouped into formal or mathematical demography and social demography or population studies. Formal demography is distinguished from social demography in terms of use of the independent and dependent variables. However, both approaches are concerned with the demographic processes of fertility, mortality or migration, or the demographic characteristics of age and sex. A formal demographer might study among populations the influence of age composition on the birth rate, or alternately the influence of the birth rate on age composition. On the other hand, a social demographer might study the influence of a sociological independent variable such as social class on the death rate, or the effects of a social psychological variable such as attitudes about motherhood on desired and intended fertility. Therefore, social demography is broader in scope and orientation than formal demography. Meaning of demography. The term demography refers to characteristics of a population. It is derived from two Greek words, demos meaning the pupil and grapho meaning to draw or write. Thus, the term demography implies to draw or write about pupil. In 1855, Achilles Gillard combined the two Greek words and coined the term demography. However, John Grant is called the real founder of demography. He wrote the book Natural and Political Observation made upon the bills of mortality. Demography is the scientific and statistical study of human population. It includes the study of the size, structure and distribution of human population. It also includes the study of spatial and or temporal changes in human population due to births, deaths, migration and aging. The study of population can be confined to the whole societies or to smaller groups. Demographic analysis can be based on different criteria like education, religion or ethnicity. It has its roots in the societal changes which accompanied the scientific and industrial revolutions. Historically, life tables have been developed by some early mathematicians to be used by life insurance companies. The population censuses were also conducted with political motives for taxation and political representation. The early demographic analysis was started in the 18th century. The conduct of a census has a long history in China, Rome and the Middle East. However, the modern censuses were conducted worldwide in the late 18th century. Definitions of demography. The economists, geographers, social scientists and others have defined the term demography differently. Some of the definitions of the demography have a narrow outlook. Some other definitions have taken a very wide scope of the demography. Thus, some important definitions of demography have been discussed below. Narrow view of demography. According to Multilingual Demographic Dictionary, demography is the scientific study of human populations, primarily with respect to their size, their structure and their development. It distinguishes between demographic statistics, economic demography and social demography. Economic demography and social demography imply the study of relations between demographic phenomena on the one hand and economic and social phenomena on the other. Wrong has taken a narrow view of demography. He defines demography as the statistical description and analysis of human populations. According to Peter R. Cox, demography is the study of statistical methods of human population involving primarily the measurements of the size, growth and diminution of the numbers of the people, the proportion of living being born or dying within the same area or region and the related functions of fertility, mortality and marriage. Thompson and Lewis defines demography as the study of population size, composition and distributions and in changes in these aspects through time and the causes of the changes. Therefore, demography involves changes in size, composition and distribution of population because they are related to human welfare. Broader view of demography. Some other demographers have given a broader view of demography. These definitions therefore also covers more clearly the nature and scope of demography. According to Hazer and Duncan, demography is the study of size, territorial distribution and composition of population changes therein and the components of such changes which may be identified as fertility, mortality, territorial movement that is migration and social mobility that is change of status. This definition has given broader view of the term demography. In this definition, the composition of population implies such traits as age, sex, race and ethnic origin, life cycle attributes as educational level and marital and household status, and variable characteristics as occupation, socio-economic status, income, etc. According to Frank Lorimer, in broad sense, demography includes both demographic analysis and population studies. The broad aspect of study of demography implies both qualitative and quantitative analysis of population. Donald J. Begg has also given a broader perspective of the term demography. According to him, demography is the mathematical and statistical study of the size, composition and spatial distribution of human population and of changes over time in these aspects through the operation of the 5 processes of fertility, mortality, marriage, migration and social mobility. In the views of W. G. Barclay, demography does not deal with the behavior of individuals, but only with the aggregates of people or even part thereof. It is the numerical portrayal of human population. In the words of G. A. Harrison and A. J. Bowie, populations are not merely conglomerations of individuals, but rather, although to different degrees, ordered coherent systems which have an entity greater than that of the sum of the individuals of which they are composed. According to H. Stanford, in its most formal sense, demography is a very technical and highly mathematical study of the vital statistics of human population, especially births, deaths and migration, as well as of the characteristics of population structures, including age, sex and marital status, as they contribute to an understanding of population change. Thus, demography is a dynamic discipline of study. It can be studied either from its technical aspects or the social aspects. The technical aspects include statistical analysis of the population size and its composition and factors responsible for its growth and its distribution. Therefore, it covers a narrow view of the subject of demography. The societal aspects include the relationship between demographic processes on the one hand and social, economic, political, biological and ecological factors on the other. Therefore, it covers a broader view of the subject of demography. Balanced view of demography. The balanced view of demography has been given by Thompson and Lewis. According to them, under demography, we can develop the understanding of population variables like fertility, mortality, information about female population, their health condition, marital status, distribution of population according to villages, and their classification according to their occupation, and also to collect and study information about social and economic condition. Keeping this into view, in modern perspective, it is accepted that demography is the study of human society. It has very little to do with individualistic human problems. Scope of demography. From the definitions given above, it is clear that there was no unanimity of views among the different demographers regarding definitions of demography and its scope. The macro demographic groups want to enlarge the scope of the subject. The micro demographic group maintain narrow view of demography. Besides, one another group favors a balanced scope of this subject. Macro demography. In this category, the views of demographers like Spencer, Vance, Ryder, Lorimer, Murray, and others are included. These demographers have studied the cause of slow or rapid growth of birth rate, death rate, population growth, sex ratio, and health conditions, etc. Besides, numerous economic issues like unemployment, income condition of the masses, standard of living, labor conditions, production, consumption, saving habits, relationship between population and economic development are also studied in macro demographic perspective. The social problem like marital status, composition of the family, growing trend about caste, religion, education, etc. are also studied in macro demography. Besides, geographical problems of migration, urbanization, etc. can also be studied using macro demography. Micro demography. In micro or narrow view, small units like individual, family, group, etc. are studied under demography. These small units constitute the primary elements of macro demographic analysis. The study of child mortality in Dharavi slums of Mumbai forms part of micro demography. However, if we study the child mortality in Maharashtra or India, it will fall under the macro demographic analysis. According to Bogue, microdemography is the study of the growth, distribution and redistribution of the population within community, state, economic area or other local area. It includes both numerical and composition aspects. Microdemographic analysis is used in subdivision of community of local areas. Balanced demography. A balanced view of the nature and scope of demography has been given by demographers like Thompson and Lewis. In this context, fertility, mortality and migration are studied. Besides demographic analysis of female population, their health condition, marital status, rural urban distribution, occupational classification and social and economic condition of population is studied. The study of demography also includes future population prospects, population and resources, techniques of measurements, training of demographers, distribution of population, family planning, population projections, demographic aspects of housing, education, saving and investment. According to Whipple, scope of demography includes gynecology, ancestry, registration of vital events, census of population, biometrics dealing with the study of structure, growth and strength of human body, path metrics dealing with the knowledge of disease and anatomy. Subject matter of demography. The subject matter of demography includes the following: size of population. The size of population means the number of people living in a given place at a given time. It is useful for comparison with past and the future projection of population. The size of population is sought by industrial organizations, schools, universities, hospitals, etc. This is useful for demographers and social scientists. Besides, the causes of change in fertility, mortality and migration are analyzed using the size of population and changes therein both in temporal and spatial perspective. Composition of population. The composition of population includes the measurable characteristics of a given population by age and sex. The population with higher proportion of men and women in the early reproductive years, that is from 18 to 35 years, would have high crude birth rates. Other things remain the same. There will more economically productive population in a community with high proportion of population between 15 and 65 years. The composition of population also depends on rural urban residence, marital status, occupation, education, religion characteristics. Demographic analysis depends not only on the composition of population at a given moment of time, but also changes in population composition, the cause of these changes and their effects on community. Distribution of population. How people are distributed in the world. The distribution of population by rural urban residence, the changes in population distribution and causes are also important in demographic analysis. The internal distribution of population such as rural farm and rural non-farm and different urban communities are important aspects of distribution of population. The changes in the distribution of population are due to cumulative effects of differences in mortality, fertility and net migration rates. In brief, the study of size, composition and distribution of population and the changes therein due to fertility, mortality and migration has economic and social significance for policy perspective. Nature of demography. The scientific nature of demography depends on its objectives to achieve knowledge of the size, composition and distribution of population, to describe past evolution of population and distribution, to inquire into trends of population and its relationship with different societal aspects, to advance projection and predictions of future demographic trends and its possible impacts. The demography employs scientific methods of observation and analysis. It is factual as well as universal. It establishes cause and effect relationship. Its laws are verifiable and generalized. Scientific method is a systematic study. The problem should be clearly defined. Observation, to minutely observe the subject matter under study. Recording, to make a careful record of the observation without any personal bias. Classification, to properly classify and organize the collected materials. Generalization, to generalize or to find a common rule on the basis of the classified matter. Verification, to preserve the scientific nature of the study. Importance of demography. Demography presents population statistics in a scientific manner. The study of demography has political and economic significance. Political significance. The demography gives the data and information on the rate by which the number of voters are increasing. It is useful to identify the voters by political parties in making the arrangement for conducting election. Economic significance. Demography helps in analyzing economic progress and development. The analysis of economic development can be made using rate of population growth. It helps to plan and modernize the economy. Demographic analysis focuses on the dimensions of unemployment and manpower planning. Demography also provides data on per capita income and production. Demography is also useful for planning authorities to allocate scarce resources to various sectors of the economy. In the last few decades, the field of demography has changed substantially. The subject matter of demography has expanded broadly and linked to other disciplines. Demographic theories cover more variables than standard demographic variables like population size, composition and distribution, and fertility, mortality and migration. The theories and models now incorporate non-demographic variables and study the effects of demographic conditions and trends to almost all dimensions of human societies and their natural environments. Therefore, demography is highly dynamic and useful for social, political and economic planning. Demography relies on large data sets. The demographic statistics are primarily derived from censuses and birth, death and marriage registrations. Huge data sets are required to develop trends in demographic indicators like birth and death rates. These are obtained from censuses. In developing countries, reliable demographic data are still difficult to obtain. Demography study changes in human populations. The demographers focus on specific indicators of change. Two most important demographic indicators are birth and death rates. The demographers are also interested in trends in migration. Demography is both an abstract science and applied science. The scientific nature of demography is widely emphasized by demographers like Irene Tuber. With improved data, new techniques and the precise measurement of the demographic transition, demography has become a science rather than art. Demography employs scientific methods. Demography deals with population statistics. Population studies deal with analytical interpretation of population dynamics and composition. Nowadays, there has been shifts from demography to population studies. I hope you have enjoyed today's lecture. Thanks for watching.